Okay, shalom. Let me check some of this volume down. Okay, shalom, everybody. We're about to go ahead and get tonight's presentation started. All right, and I guess folks eventually come on in as we proceed with tonight's presentation. Before we get started, what I'm going to do is the Father's Prayer in Hebrew, then I'm going to do it in English. And then after that, I want to go ahead and ask Brandon, our brother Brandon here, to unmute his mic. But in order for you to be able to unmute your mic, I'm going to have to send you the invite to unmute your mic. Then what you do, brother Brandon, is you unmute your mic and we'll go ahead and get the ball rolling. All right. So first and foremost, what we're going to do is go ahead and get the class started. And I'm going to start off with the Father's Prayer. Abinu, Shabbat Shamayim, Yit Kudat Shemka, O Yit Barak Melkutka, Retsunka Yahiye Ishui, Ba Shamayim, U Ba Aretz, Ut At Ain, Lak Menu Tamadit, Umakulanu, Kata'a Tenu, Ka'asher Anaknu, Mukalim, U Tabi Anu Layide, Nasayon, U Sham Ranu Makal Ra, Hallelujah. So, Mr. McCall, what we're going to do is now do it in English. All right. So I just want to make sure that everybody understands that we're going to do it in the modern Hebrew, which we did first. Now we're going to do it in English. Our Father, which art in heaven, set apart be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Father, we pray that you give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us of our debts as we forgive our debtors. Father, we pray that you lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from all that is evil. For thine is the kingdom, the glory, and all esteem belongs to the Father through his Son, YAHUSHA HaMashiach. That we say hallelujah. Father, we just want to thank you for all the great things that you have been doing for the nation of Israel, giving us wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, helping us to get a better understanding of your Torah, helping us, Father, to know what it truly means to be in covenant relationship with you, and getting back to our customs, which is going to be extremely important. And so, Father, once again, we thank you for all the great things that you have been doing for the nation of Israel. We are definitely growing. There's still a lot of nicks and snags that we still need to work through. But as long as we stay diligent with the Father, everything's going to be okay. And so, Father, we ask all these things in your set apart name through your Son, YAHUSHA HaMashiach. We say hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. So once again, Mr. McCall, I just want to thank everybody for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us here this evening. And we have Brother Brandon. Let's see. I'm going to ask Brother Brandon to unmute his mic so he can go ahead and do the Father's work and doing an intro to what the Hebron's meeting is going to be all about. So, Brother Brandon, I'm going to ask you to unmute your mic. And the floor is yours.
First of all praises to the Most High Yah, and thanks to his Son YAHUSHA HaMashiach, and shalom to the brethren, and what up to everybody else. Hopefully there is no everybody else. Hopefully you all are brethren doing the will of the Father in Shamayim. Those are my brothers and my mishpachah. So, first of all, shout out to Ak Kasadabai for allowing me to come on his platform and speak about this gathering. He was also a big part of Hebron 1. We are coming up on Hebron 4. Hebron means gathering. Hebron means binding friendship. That is what we hope to build. We feel it is a thing of Yah, right? Even everything about this gathering, from how it started, from how it was named, everything about it was something larger than ourselves. And even it's happening and its effect on all of those who have came and joined us has been just truly awesome. It spawned from an idea and a realization that we as a people are traumatized more so than we even can understand. We have deep-rooted issues with ourselves and with each other due to this captivity and our oppressors. they have been able to stay in power so long by one, disconnecting us from our creator, and two, by disconnecting us from each other, if not um uh in the physical, in the spiritual, and the emotional, right? We have a lack of trust for each other. We have a lack of affection for each other. And it was put on my heart to try to do something about that. And I reached out to a brother, YAHUAH Yashra'al. Shout out to him. He is affectionately known as the Hebrew phone book. So, in knowing his office that he has of putting Hebrews together, I reached out to him with this idea that, man, we need to come together as men and do manly things together, because it's a lot of beef, a lot of issues now with doctrines. You know, what what's the feast day? What's the Shabbat? Sex is marriage. Joseph is the daddy. It's a bunch of different things in which we now have issues over. So anyway, I brought that idea to him. He in turn introduced me to Ak Solomon and Ak Kafa, and we sat and spoke about this idea I had and how it would be a great idea. And the thing about it is, we always have ideas. So my Ak Kafa being the 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 hammer he is, the rock he is, he said, we tired of talking. Let's actually do something. Let's actually do something tangible to like start this thing. And that put a fire in me to ask and inquire of, is there anybody known that we could house an event like this? And Yehukanan put us in contact with Elder Yasav and Elder Shammai, who had land, who had gotten land in hopes of a place for the children of Yashra'al to come, but hadn't at that point seen that dream come to pass as they would have hoped. So it seemed as if our idea and their dream and vision would come together in a beautiful union, and it has. And the Hebron Men's Gathering was born. Like I said, we are on Hebron 4. There's a video from Hebron 1 and Hebron 2 I have that I would like to play if I could. Can I share the screen and
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. No problem at all.
Oh, praise it. Is my elder here? Yasab Shemai? Are they here? It says I can't share it. You have to allow it.
I don't see Moray here. But you say you're trying to share your screen?
Yeah. You have to allow it for me to be able to do it.
Okay, let me see if I see anything that's asking me to allow you to share your screen.
You might have to stop sharing yours.
Okay.
And it says host disabled participant screen sharing. You'll have to go to the option in the host option, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, so the goal of Hebron is for Black men. This is an exclusive event where we really don't want men of other nations to attend. Not that we have any kind of hatred towards them, but to address the trauma that is in the Black community as a whole, is that we have distrust in each other. We have certain hatreds for each other, whereas when it comes to other nations, we aren't as untrusting, we aren't as hateful and spiteful and all these things. So we wanted to have an event that when it happens and it succeeds, that we could look back on it and say, we looked around and saw all people that looked like us, and we had a great time, no arguments, no fights, nobody's stuff was stolen, just that it was all a beautiful time in nature, in love, in affection. And that began to be a thing that we seek after. And the hope is that it becomes infectious, that we would look up one day and see an army of brothers that are of one mind and of one way. And oh, how beautiful it would be for the brethren to dwell together in unity. That's what Hebron is all about. That's what we're trying to grow into. Still saying the same thing. Okay, hold on. I think host disabled. Well, I tell you what, maybe I could send you a link to the thing.
Okay, you should be able to share your screen now, Aki.
Okay, all right, there we go. Figure out how to get the file up there. Okay.
Oh, there we go. All right.
Let me know. Can y'all hear this? Can it be heard up?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I can hear you crystal clear, real good.
All right.
Hey, the most high real, so you gotta be real too. Yeah. I'm a fighter, I'm gonna win. I got fire in my pain in the end. It's just me and the man in the mirror, so I can't pretend see the world. My daughter yesterday, people be fake, so everybody ain't your friend. It's what I told her. And I'm putting my chest and move like a motor. And I'm slowing down and stopping. Yashra'al on my shoulders. The king that come with the cold. Plus the car broke with a vulture, frankincense be the odor. What shine brighter? A diamond or a pearl with a gift from the struck the world with just like lightning struck the world. I'm clearing up the dark places. When Negroes run you, tears of blood shedded, knowing one day I'll be beheaded. I just pray that when he's sent for me, I'm ready. Every day a different blessing, every song contains an extra sound. Nothing but ask me how I feel to be a legend. Ain't no pride in my heart no more. Ain't no hate in my heart no more. I'm just a soldier for Christ. I'm just a soldier for Christ. I done seen brothers fold in this walk, I've been through it. They try to divide us, we can't let them do it. Ain't no hate in my heart. Ain't no hate in my heart no more.
As our ancestors did, as they stayed.
Got to California, but land ugly.
Vision, I ain't trying to preach to y'all, I'm just trying to reach to y'all with these commandments that I'm commanded to teach to y'all. Psalms 83, King David got in his country being a Hebrew Israelite just ain't an option.
Brother, you know, can't secure.
Egyptian, no Buddha, Muslim, or Christian, it's a whole lot of facts in history that be missing. My people is stiff-necked, can't tell them nothing. Them ways of them heathens look them as not our custom. The past that never broke down, the patient of the saints, but they title us bywords and things.
Ain't no pride in my heart no more. Ain't no hate in my heart. Oh, Jesus Christ. Just so
I'd like to thank him for allowing me our way for our path so that I can share the testimony. I thank you for the opportunity to still show. Yeah, to get something here, I had to learn that to meet power, authority, and fact was in the process of becoming. Had to learn fast, utilize the time he gives to learn fast. Daily separation from this world. I know they hate me. Don't got fortune, don't have fame. But he gave me something they would not obtain. Folks sat down with me, tried to explain it. Left some of disbelief, not to my amazement. Pound of pavement, it is the greatest condemnation. Denies imminence, constipation, self-constipation. Being able full of bile, look deeper, see the demon hide behind a smile. They be lacking, eyes open, always sober, vigilant. Wisdom cry loud on the block, stay diligent. 6 days, ride around getting it. Ruach in my ruach overflowing, yeah, he's spilling it. People leave wonderfully made, y'all get the praise, he invented it. And do it to the end, pray I see how he did it. The same. Blinded by the waves of the world, I was lost without direction. In my lap, but I still had no protection. Be surrounded by MS-13, bloods and crips in the same rooms. 16, M16, sitting in the corner thinking how the world would bow down if we really started linking up. Here we war for boulevards and avenues, just to have control of this dollar that ain't ours. We ain't promised tomorrow. Meanwhile, all babies are caught up in the crosshair. Collateral damage. The man is a wide man grows, rolls out that concrete. Bridegroom might show up. Most nights I don't speak. Matthew 1:21. Riding on my lonely to the meet, where it's members only, members mortified. Like Mordecai, spirit fortified. Y'all throne forever, Psalm 45. Emunah, over emotion to the sea. Throw mountains, don't live by bread alone, his word. Thou without it, northern kingdom, southern kingdom, put your hand to the sky. Praise the most high, hunters and fishermen, time to ride. The same God. I want to be in that number. Thank God, thank your heart. I want to be in that number.
All right. I be heard. Still hearing sounds in my ear. Hold on. All right. So yeah, that right there was Hebron 1. There's been 2 other Hebrons since then. I got some videos of those as well, but you kind of get the gist, right? So what we hope to have this year is more teachings. What you didn't see or couldn't get was that it was different points and times where elders got up and spoke about certain things, about life, about being out in the wilderness, starting fires, cooking for your family, these kinds of things. All the different times we had to speak, you know, fellowships at the campfire, different things like that. So um, it's just a good time for men to be men and to find common ground. So that's basically what we're trying to do.
Yes, hallelujah. So, Brother Brandon, you want to give the date?
Oh, yeah.
The fee, what they should actually be bringing, as far as tents, any type of survival equipment that they might need. So if you can
Absolutely.
share with them, what they might need to bring.
Absolutely. This will be an outdoor event. All of it will be outdoors. So you should bring a tent. Um, you should bring anything you'd use for, camping, tabernacles, because you'll be tabernacle. The only difference is you'll have a group of brothers with you doing the same thing. So we plan to teach brothers how to live outdoors in the wilderness. So you might bring likewise things like knives, um, shovels, a compass, um, uh, an axe, um, things like that. Just outdoor items. Um, we plan to provide food, but you might want to bring certain foods of your own in case we serve certain things that's not to your liking. Um, um, we might have other brothers that bring in abundance, but I would suggest to uh, bring your own. I mean, to bring somewhat of your own things for like snacks, late night snacks, things like that, late night campfire cookings and things of that nature. Um, the price right now, what we're wanting to do is get early registration, right? Because our people not really sticklers for being on time. So what we wanted to do was provide an incentive for people to register early. At the start of this thing, the original ticket was about $70 for men, about $100 with with youth, right? And if a youth, because we want men and young men to be in attendance. We know a lot of our sisters don't have coverings, don't have men in their life, yet they have sons. So we want to offer women the chance to send their sons to this event and to have them taken care of and to have them be around men of Yah, right? So the youth price was about I want to say it was 30 to $40 for the youth. But in order to increase early participation, we're saying the males, adult males, The price is $35, and the youth is $20. If you register before June 1st, if you don't register before June 1st, the adult price is going back to $70, and the youth price is going to $40. So the date is August 10th through the 15th. That $35 will cover you from the 10th through the 15th. So there you go. If you get registered, we have not yet gotten the online application yet, but you can email me at blewis3649@gmail.com. That's blewis3649@gmail.com. Also at Brandon Lewis at HebronGathering.com. Brandon Lewis at Hebron Gathering. That's HEBRON Gathering. GATHERING gathering.com. And tell me that you would like to participate, and I will get you marked down and get you the proper information, the proper forms to fill out, because we will not be liable for any injuries or whatnot, because we're gonna be out in the woods and everything. So bring your grown man pants, as far as the youth and everything. We will care for them like they are our own sons. So yeah. So that's what I got. Anything else? Any questions? Anything?
In the itinerary now, is the address letting everybody know exactly where the gathering would be, right?
All right, I got you. Altamont, Tennessee. Once you get registered and everything and paid, you will get the actual address to the event. But as it stands right now, in Altamont, Tennessee, and it's up on a mountain. A beautiful, beautiful place to be.
Okay, hallelujah. We want to thank Brother Brandon for the presentation there, giving us an intro to Hebron's meeting. And this would be the fifth one, right?
Fourth.
The fourth one. Okay, this would be the fourth one coming up. And we're definitely looking forward to that. I was able to attend one of them. We had a beautiful time getting immersed, the late night conversations, shooting at the fire range, getting to meet other brothers, and just seeing how we can actually operate collectively as a body. It was beautiful. We had a great time, and looking forward to this one that's coming up in August. So once again, we're looking for early registry. So those of you that can register early, we're looking forward to that. And I promise you, and we have a perfect track record. You will enjoy yourself. You will have a good time. Okay, so Mishpachah, without further ado, what we're going to do is go ahead with tonight's presentation. And I want to thank everybody once again for taking time out of your busy schedule to join the congregation of Yashra'al in this, I believe, to be very, this is a very crucial and critical title, and it's based upon the times that we're living in. I personally believe that we are living in some very serious times here, and we really need to take heed to the times that we're living in. And this is the reason why last night, listening to the conference call that we had pertaining to the Hebron's meeting, it was very informative. I learned a lot. And coming together is going to be the only way we're able to make it out of this, I believe, last captivity. So learning how to live outdoors, learning how to shoot, learning how to share, I mean, just the mere fact of brothers helping other brothers set up their tents, that was such a beautiful thing. So helping one another is going to be key in order for us to build a proper community. So once again, the 3 decrees of Daniel, the 9th chapter. I actually touched on this a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month or so ago, but there were some questions pertaining to the 3 decrees by Daniel, and I wanted to try to expound upon it a little bit more so that there is no misunderstandings on what is actually happening in Daniel, the 9th and the 10th chapter. I also want to bring to everyone's attention, I want to apologize for the last Zoom meeting that we had. There was some interruption. I promise you that that interruption will not happen tonight. What I also learned last night with the Hebron's presentation that was put together by I think Brandon put it together last night, but I enjoyed it. And what we had talked about was there are going to be things that we don't all totally 100% agree with. And that has been the case since day one. I truly believe as we get closer and closer to these end times here, things will be set a lot more clearer and there won't be any problems. So let's just try to learn how to deal with one another. Everybody has the same objective where we want to serve the Father. And so that should say enough. If one brother is doing Shabbat on a Wednesday, another brother is doing the Shabbat on a Saturday, listen, let's try to work around, little things like that and look at the bigger picture. This is about us reuniting, and we have been away from Torah, okay, for a very, very, very long time. So just as the Mashiach had patience with his bride, let's also have patience amongst one another. Also, there was a good question that was brought to my attention in regards to what I had brought forth about 2 weeks ago in regards to the Aramaic. Okay, because I made mention that the book of Daniel, the 2nd chapter through the 2nd chapter through the 7th chapter is all written in Aramaic. And I just want to reassure everybody is that the information that I presented in Aramaic was 100% correct, all right? And the reason why it might seem that there was some discrepancy is that you cannot, and I repeat, you cannot use modern grammar rules the way that the Ashkenazis, the Sephardic Jews are asking us to pronounce certain words. You can't do that. My argument is that Daniel did not know the Sephardic Jews, those that are calling themselves Jews today. Neither did he know anybody that put together the Greek Septuagint, the lexicons, none of these things. So it is very important for us to be able to understand Semitic languages. And I'm going to be doing a class on that in about another 2 weeks to show that the information that I did share in regards to Daniel, the 2nd chapter, that it was actually correct. Also, there were some things that was brought out in Daniel, the 2nd chapter, that shows that me personally believe that that the idol or the figure that Nebuchadnezzar made was not a figure of Daniel. I'm not arguing with brothers that do believe that it was an image of Daniel. It's just that there's a wealth of information that says that it wasn't. Now, I also wanted to bring to everybody's attention is that the way that I do my classes is that archaeology, names, and dates are very important, extremely important. I come from a line of schooling back in 1992 where people taught and they said, well, believe it just because I said so. And me personally, I can no longer go that route. If you have something to present to the audience, by all means, I personally believe that you should have names, dates, and archaeology to actually prove your point. And this is what I want to try to do here tonight, is continue on that path by trying to bring forth as much information that I can to share with the Mishpachai here this evening. So what I want to do, Mishpachai, I want to take a closer look at the decrees and the restoration of Israel. Once again, I want to take a closer look at these decrees. And what I wanted to do was to first look at Daniel, the 9th chapter, verse 25 to 27 first. Now, the reason why I'm not starting with Daniel, the 9th chapter, verse 1, down to 24 is because what we have here, I'm not excluding what is going on, but Daniel is giving a very sincere prayer. He's talking about the wickedness of the nation of Israel. And for that wickedness, they were punished and they were to serve captivity under the Babylonians for 70 years. Okay, not 68 years, not 69 years. But because of Israel's disobedience and disrespecting all of the prophets that the Father has sent, the Father made it clear that the nation of Israel would serve 70 years. And then after that, they will go free. And I want also us to be able to understand is that we really need to pay very close attention to the way that our forefathers operated. And this is what I see Daniel is doing here, showing us an example on how we should be living and behaving towards one another in these last days here. So let's pick it up now from Daniel, the 9th chapter, verses 25 to 27. So please pay very, very close attention. And I'm going to ask that if everybody can just wait to the end and I'll answer your questions. And it would also help too now if you was to remember the slide that might be controversial to you, and that way I can deal with it better because we're actually dealing with the slide. I want everybody just to meditate on this. This is so important. I'm reading from the NASB version. I don't have any issues with the King James version, but when I compare the King James version with the Hebrew, with the NASB version, it's not saying anything different. It's just that the words are a little bit more modern. All right. So I'm not blasting the King James version, but the NASB version is not taking away from the King James version. So anyway, so you, Daniel, are to know and discern, Daniel, that from the issuing of a decree, watch this now, to restore and rebuild Jerusalem until the Messiah, the Prince. So the Messiah, he is the Prince, and they're telling us now, this is now Gabriel himself, who stands before the Father now, is revealing this revelation to Daniel. Follow the timeline. To restore and rebuild Jerusalem until the Messiah, the Prince, there will be 7 weeks. So 7 weeks has to transpire, and these 7 weeks now are actually now 7 times 7. So that's 7 times 7, as everybody knows now, is 49. Once the 49 years are complete, then we have to go through 62 weeks. Then it says, which is now the restoration and the rebuilding of Jerusalem, it will be built again with a plaza and moat, but watch this now, even in times of distress. So what Daniel is asking for us to do now is to first look at the first 7 weeks. The first 7 weeks. And this first 7 weeks now is actually 7 times 7, which is 49. We're going to read on. Verse 26. Then after, very important, then after the 62 weeks, and only thing that a person would have to do, because we're operating now under a system of sevens. And 7 times 62 should give you 434 years. Then after the 62 weeks, which are years, the Mashiach, or the Messiah, will be cut off and have nothing. And the people of the Prince who is to come will destroy the city and the sanctuary. And this end will come with a flood. Everybody knows what happens now with the flood. When a flood comes, it destroys everything. And so it has, and its end will come with a flood. Even to the end, there will be war, desolations are determined. Now, what we have to now do, Mishpachah, is unravel what is going on in verse 26. And once again, the reason why I'm harping on the book of Daniel so hard is because there are a lot of end time prophecies written in the book of Daniel. And I want to make sure that everybody is being kept up to speed in what's going on, because we are living in some very critical times. Now, when it says, and the people of the prince who is to come will destroy the city and the sanctuary, we need to know exactly what that means. Meaning now is that when you go to First Maccabees, okay, I believe in the book of the Maccabees, all right, just to let you know. But when you go to the book of the Maccabees and you go with, let's see, the first chapter, excuse me, the 8th chapter, I'm going to read verses 17 to 29. Watch what happens. In consideration of these things, Judas chose Eupellamus, the son of John, okay, the son of Achaz, and Jason, the son of Eleazar, and sent them to Rome to make a league of amenity and confederacy, with them. So please pay attention what's happening here. The date is 161 BC. 161 BC. And I'm sure everybody is familiar now with the story of the Maccabees. My argument is that Judas Maccabees and his sons made a league with the Romans, which they should not have done. And I'm going to go into that a little bit more in detail. But watch how extensive and explicit this covenant is that Israel, during the time of the Maccabees, made with the Romans. Watch how detailed it gets. Verse 18, and to entreat them that they would take the yoke from them, for they saw that the kingdom of the Grecians did oppress Israel with servitude. And so understanding now the colossal figure that that Nebuchadnezzar saw, that Daniel revealed by the Ruach of the Father, we have Babylon being that head of gold. Then we have the iron, which represents the Medo-Persian Empire. Then we have the bronze, which represents, the Greeks, Alexander the Greek. And then we have the iron, which represents Rome. Then it talks about the 10 toes, which represents the EU. And we'll talk about that just a little bit here tonight. Watch how the story gets very explicit. And to entreat them that they would take the yoke from them, for they saw that the kingdom of the Grecians did oppress Israel with servitude. They went therefore to Rome, which was a very great journey, and came into the Senate, where they spoke and said, Judas Maccabeus with his brethren and the people of the Yahudim have sent us unto you to make a confederate and peace with you, and that we might be registered your confederates and friends. So the matter pleased the Romans well. And this is a copy of the letter which the Senate wrote back again in tables of brass, and sent to Jerusalem, that there might have by them a memorial of peace and confederacy. Good success be to the Romans and to the people of the Yahudim, by sea and by land forever. The sword also and the enemy be far from them. If there come first any war upon the Romans or any of their confederates throughout all their dominion, the people of the Yahudim shall help them, as the time shall be appointed with all their heart. Neither shall they give anything unto them that make war upon them, or abide with victuals such as weapons, money, or ships, as it has seemed good unto the Romans, but they should keep their covenant without taking anything therefore. 2 more verses. In the same manner also, if war came first upon the nation of the Jews, of the Yahudims, the Romans shall help them with all their heart, according as time shall be appointed them. Neither shall victuals now be given to the take, excuse me, this Quaker English here. Neither shall victuals be given to them that take part against thee, or weapons, or money, or ships, or to have seen good to the Romans, but they should keep their covenants, and that which without deceit. 1 more verse. According to these articles, did the Romans make a covenant with the people of the Yahudims? So once again, Mr. McCall, this happened in 161 BC, where Israel made a covenant with the Romans because they were being oppressed by the Greeks. At this stage of the game in 161 BC, the Greeks now were at the end of their reign. And we're talking about, in specific now, Antiochus Epiphanes. And we'll talk about Antiochus Epiphanes in another lesson, because he is not who some people say that he is as far as the little horn is concerned. And we'll talk about that at another time. But let's keep the ball rolling. Verse 27, and he will make a firm covenant with many for 1 week. So now we're talking about the Mashiach. The Mashiach will make a firm covenant with many for 1 week. Remember, we're operating here under a numerical system of 7. So 7 times 1 is 7. So he will make a firm covenant with many for, we have 7 years. But in the middle of the week, which is 3.5, so in 3.5 years, he, which is the Mashiach, will put a stop to sacrifice and grain offerings. Watch this now. And on the wing of abominations will come one who makes desolate. So what does that mean? When it says on the wing of abominations will come one who makes desolate. My argument is this, Mr. McCarr. In order for us to be able to understand scriptures properly, every single verse needs to be broken down. And with my studies, what has been happening is that there is so much to unravel with this onion here, and I'm calling the book of Daniel an onion, meaning now is that there are so many layers to it. Now watch this. It says, on the wing of abominations, one will come who makes desolate. Makes what desolate? Makes Jerusalem desolate. And how do I know that this is the Romans? Is because Herod, what he did is that after the restoration of the building of Jerusalem, he placed an eagle on the doorpost or in front of the tabernacle. And what happened now was that wing represented Rome, not Babylon. It represented Rome. Babylon was a lion with wings. We know that the Romans, who is an offshoot, America, which is an offshoot of Rome, we know that America represents the eagle with the wings, and America is an offshoot of Rome. My proof of this would be the book of Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter, I believe it is, the 29th verse. And I like to be thorough with every single thing that I do so that there's no mistakes. Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter, verse 49. It says now, the sovereign shall bring a nation against thee from far, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flieth, a nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand. 1 more verse. A nation of fierce countenance, which shall not regard the persons of the old, nor show favor to the young. My argument, again, is that this is ultimately now referring to the Roman Empire, which is the United States, which is the situation why we're here today. So let's keep on going. And on the wings of abominations will come one who makes desolate, even until a complete destruction. One that is decreed is poured out on the one who makes desolate. Further proof, the book of Ezra, the first chapter, verses 1 through 4. This is how I'm coming up with my timeline here, Mr. Picard. There has to be a timeline. This timeline was very important to Daniel. And there's also a timeline that we should be following in these last days here. I pray that everyone is keeping an eye on the news. What is happening to the dollar? We're now on the brink of coming into a new form of currency. Banks are closing. Mr. Picard, we need to really turn off the crap that is on our that we watch on TV and take some time and watch and see how the Father is actually operating by keeping a close eye on the news. So watch this now. I'm going to read the book of Ezra, the first chapter, verses 1 through 4. And once again, this is the NSAB version. Now, in the first year of Cyrus, king of Persia, in order to fulfill the word is Devar, to fulfill the word of the sovereign by the mouth of Jeremiah. So what we would have to do is make sure that we understand the book of Yirmiyahu, the 25th chapter and the 29th chapter, because Jeremiah, the 25th chapter and the 29th chapter explains to us in detail how long will be the captivity for Southern Kingdom because of disobedience. Watch how this goes. The sovereign stirred up the spirit of Cyrus, king of Persia, so that he sent a proclamation throughout all his kingdom and also put it in writing, saying, watch this now, thus saith Cyrus, king of Persia, the sovereign, the mighty one of heaven, has given me all the kingdoms of the earth, and he has appointed me to build him a house. Please pay very close attention. To build him a house. But let's back up here just a little bit here. Daniel, the 9th chapter, verses 25-27 says this. So you are to know and discern that from the issuing of the decree to restore and rebuild Jerusalem into the Messiah will be 7 weeks. Let's listen to Cyrus again. Thus says Cyrus, king of Persia, this is the 2nd chapter, the sovereign, the mighty one of heaven, has given me all the kingdoms of the earth and has appointed me to build him a house in Jerusalem, which is in Judah. Whoever there is among you of all this people, may his Elohim be with him. Let him go up to Jerusalem, which is in Judah, and rebuild the house. Only the house, Mishpachah. The house, the house, the house. Daniel, the 9th chapter, verse 25 says, rebuilding not just the house, but we're talking about rebuilding the whole thing, the walls, setting up a judicial system again, magistracy again, where Israel can actually now function as a people because they just come out of captivity, the 70 years, and the promise was, according to Jeremiah, the 25th chapter and the 29th chapter, Israel was to now regain her status as a nation following her own rules and regulations. Let's read on because it's going to all explain itself. So whoever there is among you of all his people, may his Elohim be with him. Let him go up to Jerusalem, which is in Judah, and rebuild the house of the sovereign. The God or the mighty one of Israel, he is, I'm going to say it again, he is the mighty one who is in Jerusalem. This is the place where the Father has placed his name, in Jerusalem, not in Georgia, okay, not in Jersey, not in Tennessee, not in Massachusetts. He placed his name in Jerusalem. But let me also share this. Being today, the nation of Israel is scattered. We know that the Father has placed his name on his chosen people, and we're talking about a remnant. But keeping everything in context, the place where the Father placed his name at is Jerusalem. Verse 4, every survivor at whatever place he may live, let the men of that place support him, which are the Israelites now, with silver and gold, with goods and cattle, together with a free will offering for the house of the sovereign, which is in Jerusalem. So, Mishpachah, we're talking about here when Israel came out of the 70-year captivity, and under now the tutorship and under the decree of Cyrus, Israel came out with reparations. Reparations. My argument here is that when we come out of this captivity here, we will get reparations. The same way when we came out of Egypt, when under the tutorship of Moses, we also came out with reparations. So whatever it is that the government wants to repay us, as we might be hearing through the grapevine now, it can never be enough. Once again, it can never be enough because of the bloodshed that was shed amongst our people. So he can never repay you enough. Let's read on. I want everybody to notice that Cyrus' proclamation is about the building of a house in Jerusalem. And I have a house in bold letters here. It is not, and I repeat, it is not about restoring and rebuilding the city of Jerusalem just yet. However, the first year of Cyrus' proclamation happened in between 536 and 535 BC. This is very important. This year marks the 70th year of Babylonian captivity has ended. And the only thing that a person would have to do now to prove that the math is correct, the math does not lie. And me personally, I don't fall on this trip. Oh, Kasadaba, what you did now is that you brought forth 100 scholars that are all white. That makes absolutely no sense to me at all. I don't care, me personally, I don't care whether the person is black, white, blue, green, orange, yellow, whatever. 1 + 1 is 2. And if that individual is saying 1 + 1 is 2, you're correct. Meaning now is that when you look at when Israel went into captivity under the Babylonians, it was 605 BC. We have here now that the first year of Cyrus' proclamation happened in 535 BC. Take 535 BC or 535 from 605, and guess what you get, Mishpachah, all day long. You get the 70th year. Israel's captivity is up under the rule of Cyrus, and those are facts. You can't get around the facts. And once again, I don't play that color game like that. I really don't. Facts are facts. And if anybody now disagree, brotherly, out of brotherly love, only thing that you would have to do, respectfully now, is to bring out something to contradict these dates. That's all you would have to do. But whenever a brother or sister disagree just for the hell of it and say, I just disagree, showing no proof or facts why you disagree, that person is being selfish and arrogant. It is about time now for us to get out of this mindset, well, I can just say whatever it is that I want to say, and it's up to you to believe it. This is what they do in the Christian church. Everybody must make sure that they check their research, check the dates, because those of us now that are shepherds in the vineyard, we want to make sure that the information that we're giving to the sheep is as accurate as possible. Let's read on. If you continue reading Ezra chapter 1 through chapter 7, watch this now. Some troubling events happen to the Yahudim. While Cyrus sets in motion the rebuilding of the house of the sovereign, adversaries who live near Jerusalem start to make trouble for the returning Yahudim. We won't go through all the details here, but you can read them in your Bible when you read chapters 1 through 7. We just want to briefly summarize some things here. And you will also be able to find a lot of important information on how our adversaries in trying to rebuild the house, Josephus goes into very good details on what actually happened. And once again, I know that there's a lot of brothers and sisters don't even believe in the writings of Josephus. Sometimes I'm almost at a wit's end. We don't use the book of Josephus and we use some academia reports, I don't believe Kasada about the academia reports. I don't believe the book of Josephus. I don't believe what you're saying. I don't believe anything. I'm like, wow, bro, that's kind of tough. How do you now prove your point when you're just discrediting now history? Because what we're reading now is history. Let's move on. The work on the house of the Father is stopped by the adversaries who send a letter to Darius, because we're now with Darius now, the Medo-Persian king who follows after Cyrus, to ask if Cyrus' decree was issued. The adversaries, because of what was going with the adversaries. Now, what I have here, Mr. McCarr, I want everybody to pay some close attention. I brought out this information earlier, but there seems to have been some questions regarding this presentation the last time. And once again, I just want to be able to expound upon it a little bit more so that there's no issues. And if there is an issue, once again, let me say this. If there is an issue, anybody that truly knows me, I have no issues with recanting, apologizing to the mores and to the sheep that, listen, your brother made a mistake. I have no issues with that. But now I'm showing my proof. In book 11, containing the interval of 250 years and 5 months from the first year of Cyrus to the death of Alexander the Greek, in chapter 1 is going through the whole breakdown on what is actually happening now in regards to the rebuilding of the temple. Chapter 1 goes into about Cyrus. Chapter 2 about the death of Cyrus. Chapter 3 talks about the death of Cambyses and the slaughter of the Magi's under the reign of Darius. Chapter 4 talks about the temple was built while the Kuthians, which are the Ethiopians, endeavored in vain to obstruct the work. Chapter 5 talks about Xerxes, the son of Darius, was well disposed to the Yahudim. Chapter 6 talks about concerning Esther, because there's a Xerxes and then there's a Artaxerxes. Chapter 7 talks about how John slew his brother on the Mashiach at the temple. And chapter 8 talks about the temple being built on Mount Gerizim. And also goes into Alexander and how he made his entry into the city of Jerusalem and what benefits he bestowed on the Yahudim. So obviously, I'm not going to be able to read all of these chapters here. But if anybody was interested, only thing they would have to do, once again, I will send you my notes for free. They're free. Because I don't want anybody to think that, you know what, the Ruach is working with me this way. Kassad, you have to do research. And this is when the Father leads me now into the direction that I need to go, so that when it comes time now for me to do the lesson, everything is as accurate as possible. All right. I'm not talking about nobody didn't come into my room in the late night and I fell on my face and I was lifted up and I was taken up into space and I was shown these things. No. That did not happen to me. I got this revelation by staying up and during the witch hour, if you want to call that, the graveyard shift I was doing reading and studying, making sure that every single thing was correct. Let's see if the Tanakh corresponds to our historical records. For now, let's first review the first 3 decrees that work together to restore and rebuild Jerusalem. Once again, these 3 decrees work together to restore and rebuild Jerusalem. Watch this. Decree number 1 is explained in the book of Ezra, the 1st chapter, verses 1 through 4, Cyrus the Persian, who began his reign in 536 BC. Decree number 2 came in Ezra, the 6th chapter, verses 7 through 12, with Darius of Persia in 519 BC. Decree number 3 came about in Ezra, the 7th chapter, verses 11 through 25, which is Xerxes in the fall of 457 BC. 457 BC is going to be extremely important. Extremely important. Xerxes' decree is not nulling Darius' decree. Darius' decree is not nulling or making null Cyrus' decree. Once again, these 3 decrees are working together. Let's examine the math. Decree number 1, from Cyrus the Persian to Darius of Persia is 17 years. All right. And from Darius to the final decree made by Xerxes is 62 years long. So the only thing a person would have to do is if you was to subtract 519 from 457, you get 62 years long. And this is all explained now, all explained in what I just showed you here now in book number 10 of the book of Josephus. I forgot to make mention of that. This information is coming from the book of Josephus, Joseph ben Matthias, which was his true name, but he changed his name to to Josephus, because Joseph ben Matthias, who is Josephus now, actually fought alongside with the Yahudims against Vespasian and Titus until he found himself in a situation where he knew that he couldn't win. This is when Josephus now actually turned his back on the soldiers in Israel. And we'll talk about that at another time. Let's continue to examine some of these facts and how they interact as one. Watch how important this becomes. And the reason why, once again, I'm going into detail with this, I pray that everybody pays very close attention, because those of us that are shepherds, and what is going on with Hebron's men gathering, and we're looking forward where the women can also have a gathering so they can understand how these prophecies are working and how these prophecies, they keep reoccurring. And when I say they reoccur, meaning now is that we should be able to learn now from our forefathers. The book of Ezra, the 6th chapter, verse 14. And the elders of the Yahudims were successful in building through the prophecy of Haggai, the prophet, and Zechariah, the son of Iddo. And they finished building according to the command of the Elohim of Israel. Watch this now. And the decree of Cyrus, Darius, and Xerxes, king of Persia. So it's only reiterating what I said earlier, that these 3 decrees are operating as one, and one decree is not superseding the other. These 3 are operating as one. Now, according to Ezra, their 3 combined decrees constituted a single decree that was the outworking of the divine command of the great Elohim Shamayim, or the God of heaven. By the divine decree issued at the beginning of Daniel's prayer, and this is interesting, when Daniel was making his prayer in the 9th chapter, before Daniel is able to complete his prayer, the Father loves Daniel so much that he sends Gabriel to have Daniel to understand that we're now in the last days of your captivity. And I'm going to share with you now what these visions were. Like I have been doing, Daniel sees two visions. One vision is a vision of the Moreh, and the other vision is what we call the Chazon, which is 2,300 evenings and mornings. And we're going to talk about that. Now, the three royal decrees were empowered to act as one to facilitate events more significant than any one of the three kings' individual actions. The word issued at the beginning of Daniel's prayer in Daniel 9:23 represents the heavenly action of the Father that fostered the united actions of Cyrus, Darius, and Xerxes to restore and rebuild Jerusalem. Without the final action, watch this now, without the final action of the third king Xerxes, the single decree to restore and rebuild Jerusalem would have been unrealized. Unrealized. So these three are operating together because what is happening now is that as the adversaries are seeing Israel rebuild the walls and the city and the temple, they're giving Israel problems. And they're asking these kings now to go back and check the records to see whether or not Darius and Cyrus actually gave the authority now to actually have the Yahudims rebuild Jerusalem. Because their argument is that whenever the nation of Israel got back on their own feet, watch this now, they refused to follow the rules and regulations that was around them. The nation of Israel followed their laws, statutes, and commandments. This is the reason why anybody that knows me, that I am a strong advocate of Torah. Going to look for justice outside of Torah is a problem, a major problem. In these last days here, what we're supposed to be doing now is being able to operate as a community. And when there's an issue between two brothers or a brother and a sister or two sisters, we should have the type of system set up where we can go amongst one another and squash the beef without now having the adversary to interject what he believes how we should handle the situation. And 99.9999% of the time, guess what? He's going to judge the situation based upon his judicial system and not according to Torah. So let's read on. So the original word is the Hebrew word debar, issued in Daniel 9:23 by Gabriel, finds its completion in the word debar to restore and rebuild Jerusalem, which is outlined in the book of Daniel, the 9th chapter, verse 25. That was issued by Xerxes I. This final decree is recorded in Ezra, the 7th chapter, and we're going to go to that. Look at Ezra, the 7th chapter, 7 and 7. Oh, you know what? Let me go ahead down a little bit. I don't want to go too fast. Ezra, the 7th chapter, verses 12 to 13. Xerxes, king of kings, to Ezra the priest, the scribe of the law of the Elohim of heaven, perfect peace. And now, I, Xerxes, have issued a decree that any of the people of Israel and their priests and the Levites in my kingdom who are willing to go to Jerusalem may go with you, Ezra. 7:21. Even I, King Xerxes, issue a decree to all the treasurers who are in the provinces now beyond the river, that whatever Ezra the priest, the scribe of the law of the Elohim, of the God of Elohim, may require of you, it should be done basically with all diligence. Whatever is commanded by the Elohim of heaven, let it be done with the zeal for the house of the Father of heaven, so that there will be wrath, for the house of Elohim of heaven, so that there will not be wrath against the kingdom of the kings and his sons. Now, this is the thing. If the third decree is the starting point for the rebuilding of Jerusalem, then when did that decree occur? When did that decree occur? If you can go to the book of Ezra, 7 and 7. Watch this, Mishpachar. 7 and 7. Hold on for 1 minute here. Let me just get it, so we can all be on the same page here. Okay, the book of Ezra, 7 and 7. I got it. Here we go. And there went up some of the children of Israel and of the priests and the Yahudims and the singers and the porters and Natims and unto Jerusalem in the 7th year of Assertsi. Okay, so the 7th year of Assertsi now is going to be very important. Let's read on. Below, you will find the dates of the kings from Cyrus to Xerxes as recorded in Ptolemy's canon, who was an astronomer who lived from 100 AD to 170 AD. So I'm sharing with you where I'm getting this information from. Ptolemy's canon, who was an astronomer who lived from 100 to 170 AD. He kept records of the reigns of kings who were passed on and maintained them. His canon records the dates of the kings of ancient Babylon and Medo-Persian. So let's look at some of these Persian kings here. Cyrus ruled from 538 to 530 BC. That's decree number 1. Cambius now from 529 to 522 BC. I was not able to find anything with Cambius now doing anything about any decrees in regards to rebuilding Jerusalem. But yet Darius now in 521 to 486 BC, we see now the second decree. And then we have Xerxes now the first. He reigned from 485 to 465. And this Xerxes now is referring to in the book of Esther, which is the sister Hadassah with Mordecai. And we all pretty much know the whole story with Purim. But what is interesting now, Xerxes, who ran from 464 to 421 BC. This is the third decree. Remember what I just read now. It's talked about in the 7th year of Xerxes. Xerxes began his reign in 464 BC. So watch this now. If Xerxes' first year was 464 BC, then his 7th year of reign would be 457 BC. 457 is going to be very important. So as we look at the chart that I have here, 464, 463, 462, 461, 460, 459, 458. Guess what? His 7th year is 457 BC, which falls exactly in line with Ezra, the 7th chapter, verse 7, which we just read. Now, the 7th year of Xerxes' reign would have been 457 BC, when the decree went forth to restore and rebuild Jerusalem. Watch this now. In Daniel, the 9th chapter, verse 26, it says that the Mashiach is cut off. Watch this now. When the Mashiach is cut off, earthly Jerusalem is destroyed. Once again, when the Mashiach is cut off, in the book of Daniel, the 9th chapter, verse 26, and we're going to read it here, I just want everybody to be able to understand that the earthly Jerusalem is destroyed. Let's read it. Daniel 9:26. Then after the 62 weeks, because we already dealt with the first 7. 7 times 7 is 49. So we're dealing with 7, we're dealing with 62, and we're dealing with the last week. And I'm going to show all of this now with the timeline. Then after the 62 weeks, the Mashiach will be cut off and have nothing. 0, nothing. And the people of the prince who is to come will destroy the city. And we went into that already when we talked about the first book of Maccabees, the 8th chapter, verses 17 to 29. The people of the prince to come and destroyed the city is the Romans. It was in 161 again BC when Judas Maccabees, the Israelites now, made a league with the Romans. And what the Romans did now is that they turned their backs on the treaty that they made with the Jews. And we know that eventually the Romans destroyed Jerusalem in 70 AD. Take note that Daniel 9:26 does not indicate when the Mashiach will be cut off. It only says that after, in bold letters, after 62 weeks, he will be cut off. And the only thing that we would have to do again is multiply 62 times 7. That gives us 434. And I'm going to show that in the timeline. He will be cut off, which is the Mashiach. The exact point that the Mashiach is to be cut off is in the next verse, Daniel 9:27. Once again, the exact point that the Messiah is to be cut off is in the next verse, Daniel 9:27, which is in the middle of the last week when he puts a stop to sacrifice grain offerings. The point of Daniel 9:26 is not the timing of the cutting off, but the fact that the Mashiach will be cut off. And Daniel 9:27 tells us after the 62 weeks, the Mashiach will be cut off. So watch again. To be cut off, what does that mean? To be cut off was a common expression that was used to describe what happened to an individual who had neglected some religious duties. They were threatened with being cut off from the chosen people, and after being cut off, a man was considered a stranger and with no share whatsoever in the blessings of the covenant. It also referred to death. Death. Let's take a look at Exodus, the 31st chapter, verse 14, and we're going to get back into the meat of this presentation tonight. Therefore, you ought to observe the Shabbat, for it is set apart to you. Everyone who profanes it shall surely be put to death. For whosoever does any work on it, that person shall be cut off from among his people. What I'm trying to share here now is that we see this word being cut off being used in Exodus, the 31st chapter, verse 14. And we see it also being used here now with the book of Daniel, the 9th chapter, verse 26, when it talks about the Mashiach now will be cut off. And we have to understand why the Mashiach was cut off. The Mashiach is totally, however, notice that the Mashiach is not only cut off, but he has nothing after he dies. Meaning now is that when we begin to look at the Talmudim of the Mashiach, his disciples, smite the shepherd and the sheep will scatter. And that's exactly what happened. When the Mashiach was cut off, we had an end to animal sacrificing. We see that the Talmudim all scattered. But yet, before the Mashiach was cut off, the disciples said that, you know what? We will never forsake you. We won't forsake you. But we have a situation now where Peter denied the Mashiach 3 times before the cock crowed. Mishpachar, when the Mashiach was cut off, that means now that Jerusalem is cut off as having that hedge of protection. And when the Mashiach is not there, guess what happened? 70 AD occurred. And here we are today, scattered amongst all of the nations on the earth. This is the reason why, once again, I am a strong advocate. The only way that the nation of Israel can operate properly is with the Father, the Mashiach, the nation of Israel, meaning now the man, the women, and the children. That format is given to us for a reason. The Mashiach cannot operate without the Father. The man cannot operate without the Mashiach because the Mashiach is operating under the authority of the Father. The woman cannot operate outside of her covering which is her husband. Her husband follows the Mashiach follows the Father. When this is properly set in order, Israel cannot lose. You can't lose. Okay, but we know now is that Jesus, who the church commonly called Jesus, is YAHUSHA HaMashiach. He was rejected. The language of nothing would here imply that he has lost more than his life. He has also lost the holy city and his special possession, which is Israel. The prince stands no more as the guardian and the sovereign protector for Jerusalem. With the Mashiach gone, Mishpachah, kiss your behinds goodbye. And that's exactly what happened. Being that we did not understand the time of our visitation, I will now lay Israel even with the ground. That means death, slaughtering, starvation. This is what happened because once again, Israel did not understand the time of her visitation. Let's read on. He has lost up the city he has assigned to protect. This is not merely the language of monetary loss. It is also the language of personal rejection. And this is what the Mashiach received. Personal rejection from his bride. Isolation and abandonment from the very city and the people the prince have loved for centuries. His and the city's fate are now sealed. Desolations are about to come to the city because left to themselves, the people of the prince cannot protect themselves against their enemies. Once again, because the Mashiach has removed his covering from Israel, the people of the prince cannot protect themselves against their enemies. The Jewish people of the Yahudims bring destruction upon this city as a direct result of the mistreatment of YAHUSHA HaMashiach at the end of the probationary period of the 70 weeks granted by Daniel people in the holy city. Also, I want everybody to be able to understand. More Yasablanu, more Hiram, there are advocates of what I'm about to say. Brothers and sisters, it is very important that you stand on your square in your relationship with your Ishais, in relationship with other brothers. It is very important that you stand on your square. And with you standing on your square, take it from me, because I went through this, you will lose a lot. But if you hang in there, you have a lot to gain in the end. Meaning now, just as the Mashiach gave his life, don't be surprised if you might have to give up the very thing that you love and adore. This is what this walk is all about. Let's pick it up, speed it up. We only have about 8 more slides and then we're done. When he approached Jerusalem, which is the Mashiach, he saw the city and he wept over it saying, watch this now. If you, which is the bride, had known in this day, even you, which is the bride, the things which make for peace, which is shalom, but now they have been hidden from your eyes. What does that mean? There are rules and regulations to the marriage. If you don't abide by the rules and regulations to the marriage, the consequences can be deadly, very deadly. This is a wedding covenant blood contract. This is the reason why when we see in the book of Genesis, the 15th chapter, when we see the smoking furnace and the burning lamp going between the pieces, and notice now that Abraham did not go between the pieces, meaning this, whoever goes between the pieces, these dead animals here, whoever breaks those commandments there, just as those dead animals were slain, that individual should be slain. I am warning everybody at the sound of my voice, you do not want to break covenant, an oath, these vows to the Father. The consequences is death if you break these laws, statutes, and commandments according to Torah. Let's read on. So, being that Israel did not understand the time of her visitation, it says in verse 43, for the days will come upon you when your enemies will throw a barricade against you and surround you and hem you in on every side. And they will level you to the ground, meaning they will kill you. And the Father is not a respecter of persons. I will kill you, your wife, and your little children. And they will not leave in you one stone upon another, because you did not recognize the time of your visitation. This is the reason why I believe that the Hebron men's meeting is very important. I believe that those of us that are very sincere in making sure that we understand what the Mashiach's ministry was and why the Talmudim, after the death of the Mashiach, had beef with the Pharisees. They were trying to show them now is that animal sacrificing had come to an end, because animal sacrificing now could not properly atone for the sins of the nation of Israel, and we need something better. Something better. We need someone with that has no blemishes. And this is the reason why another man can't die for another man, is because we all have blemishes. But the Mashiach now, coming through now, a vessel, a woman who never had intercourse before, because the Mashiach existed from the very beginning. Only thing that the Mashiach needs now is an avatar. He needs a body to come through now that is unadulterated, a woman that never had intercourse before, because he existed from the beginning, come through this channel without sin, and then die for the nation of Israel, because neither one of us can do that. It would take an individual without sin to accomplish that. Let's read on. Did you notice the reason why the city is destroyed? Because the Yahudim did not recognize the time of the visitation. The Yahudim did not recognize Jesus, who the church called as Jesus, but we know that his name is YAHUSHA, but I'm not going to get into any arguments with the pronunciation. I don't do that anymore, all right? Jesus, YAHUSHA, but we do know that he was Hebrew, so his name could not have been Jesus, because again, that's a Greek word. But anyway, the Jews did not recognize Jesus as the Messiah when he visited them at his first coming. The Yahudim and their scholars had the scriptures, and they could not discern the time of his first coming as prophesied in the book of Daniel, the 9th chapter, verse 25. The information was there. Again, while some faithful Jews did indeed recognize the Mashiach as the Messiah, the national leaders and the nation as a whole, I have it in bold letters, they did not. As such, the Jewish nation destroyed themselves in the process. I'm going to skip this slide here, okay, because I want to speed things up here a little bit. I just want to thank everybody for joining in tonight. I really appreciate this so much. I'll tell you what I do. I'll just read it, but I'm not going to give any exegesis behind it. But just one word I do want to make clear. When they approached Jerusalem, and they came to Bethpage. Bethpage is city of unripe figs. That's what the word Bethpage means. At the Mount of Olives, the Mashiach then sent 2 disciples, telling them, go into the village ahead of you. At once you will find a donkey tied there with her foal. Untie them and bring them to me. If anyone says unto you, say that the sovereign needs them, and he will send them at once. This took place so that what was spoken through the prophet might be fulfilled. Tell the daughter of Zion, see, your king is coming to you, gentle and mounted on a donkey, on a colt, the foal of a donkey. This is the timeline. The Mashiach, this diagram is what I've been talking about, Yahusha's ministry. This is the Mare's vision. The Mare's vision is 490 years. The 490 years began at 457 BC. I brought that out with the book of Ezra, the 7th chapter, verse 7. This is the decree that was made by Xerxes. The first 7 is actually now 7 times 7. 7 times 7 is 49. It took 49 years to build and restore Jerusalem. I brought out facts that it was not under Cyrus, it was not under Darius. According to the book of Ezra, the 7th chapter, verse 7, it was actually Xerxes. In 457, we broke down the timeline for 464 minus 7 gives you 457 BC. That's scripture. When you subtract now 49 from 457, you get 408 BC. Once that is accomplished now, it says 7 weeks, and then it says 62 weeks. 7 times 62 is 434. Once the 434 has expired, it gives us now 27 AD. And this is now the fall of 27 AD. We now have a situation where we have the 7, the 62, and the 1 in bold letters. Then underneath that, we have the 49, the 434, and then we have the 7. Watch the math. We have 70 prophetic weeks, and we have 490 literal years. If you look at the bold letters, numbers there, 7 plus 62 plus 1 gives us what? It gives us 70. Now, let's look at that in years. 49 plus 434 plus 7 gives us 490 years. Now, what we're concentrating on is, when does this prophecy come to an end with the 490 literal years? We have now Daniel talking about the ministry of the Mashiach being 70 weeks, all right? 70 weeks now is 1 year, 4 months, and 2 weeks. Then after that, we have to now make some accommodations now for the last 3.5 years. The last 3.5 years ends in 34 AD. What is so significant about 34 AD? In 34 AD, we have the stoning of Stephen in the book of Acts. And then we have also in 34 AD, we have Paul, Shaul, his conversion on the road to Damascus. This is when the Mashiach speaks to Daniel about kicking against the pricks. And so once again, Paul has this conversion in 34 AD, and this is the last time that we have the Mashiach speaking to anyone. The next time that we see the Mashiach speaking to anyone would be during the time of the book of Revelation, the first chapter where he's speaking to John on the island of Patmos. But this is my timeline that I have here, Mr. Picard. The 70 prophetic weeks, the 490 literal years. This is my diagram showing Daniel's 70 prophetic weeks, which turns out now 70 times 7 gives you 490 literal years. Let's move on. In Daniel 9:27, the Mashiach makes a strong covenant in the middle of the last week, just like here. 3.5, 3.5, which gives us 7. Well, watch what happens. In Daniel 9:27, the Messiah makes a strong covenant in the middle of the last week, which is 3.5, and there are ongoing desolations. Daniel 9:27, let's read it. And he will make a firm covenant with the many for 1 week, but in the middle of the week, he will put a stop to sacrifice and grain offerings. On the wing of abomination will come one who makes desolate, even until a complete destruction. One that is decreed is poured out on the one who makes desolate. In Daniel 9:27, the text indicates that the Messiah will put a stop to sacrifice and grain offering. The Hebrew verb that translates as put a stop is the verb Shabbat, what means to cease, to desist, to rest. which would indicate a Shabbat rest, meaning this, as long as the original Israelites are not in the land will rest. It will rest. It will not harvest. It will not produce her yield accordingly because the original people are not there. Let's read on. The first use of the verse Shabbat is found in Genesis 2:2, and in verse 3, as the Father rested on the seventh day. It is also used in Exodus 5:5 for the rest that Moses sought for his people in the Exodus from Egypt. The rest is anticipated in Daniel 9:24 in an expression to put an end to sin. Remember, there still remaineth a rest for Israel. My argument is that we are not at rest. Whenever you still have to get up in the mornings or in the middle of the night and work, as long as now our sisters are going through birth pains and hard deliveries, all these things here lets me know that we're still under the curse, and there still remaineth a rest, and at this rest, man should not study war anymore. And right now, we're still studying war. What lets me to know is that this rest has not happened yet. Let's move on. Matthew 24:15. Therefore, when you see the abomination of desolation, which was spoken of through Daniel the prophet, standing in the holy place, let the reader understand. Now, this is where Judas Maccabees made a big mistake at. All right, big major mistake. Let me give you a little history here. In 165 BC, you have Judas Maccabees now fighting against the Greeks, and I do understand it. All right, you have Alexander the Freak, okay, and all these other cats out here now having Israel to do all kind of detestable things, and they want to fight for their people. Judas and these guys here, they're talking about restoring the temple. The restoring of the temple does not happen before the death of the Mashiach. The death of the Mashiach has to happen, and the Mashiach's ministry ended in 34 AD, when we begin to do the calculation from 457 to 34 AD. Now that gives us 490 literal years. After the 490 literal years, we now move into what we call the Chazon. The Chazon is when the city now is restored, not during the time of Judas Maccabees. That was all a lie. The Mashiach did not celebrate the Feast of Tabernacles, not the Feast of Tabernacles, but the Feast of Hanukkah. Those are Jewish traditions. Jewish traditions. You will never be able to find anywhere in the scripture where the Mashiach is celebrating or observing now Hanukkah. It's just not there. Let's read on. Mark, the 13th chapter, verse 14, is basically saying the same thing. Luke, the 21st chapter, verse 20, is saying the same thing. Okay, here we go. 3 more slides and we're done. Daniel understands the More's vision. Daniel 10:1. In the 3rd year of Cyrus, king of Persia, a message was revealed to Daniel. Watch this now. Who was named Belshazzar. And the message was true and one of great conflict. But he, Daniel, understood the message and had an understanding of the vision. I'm only asking, I'm being sincere about this. Put your mouse under the word vision and you get the word more. This more is talking about YAHUSHA HaMashiach. I did now like 9 classes, over 9 hours worth of material showing that this vision is the more, and this more is YAHUSHA HaMashiach. Now watch this now. The 3rd year of Cyrus is 536 to 535 BC. The captivity started in 605 BC. This is now the 70th year. Daniel now did not understand the More's vision in the book of Daniel, the 9th chapter. He didn't understand it. Daniel wanted to understand the other vision, which was the Chazon, but Daniel was told to understand the vision of the More, and the vision of the More is the vision of the Mashiach, and we're going to prove that here tonight. Daniel, the 9th chapter, verse 23, 27. Let's look at the difference between the 490 years. How did I move this mouse? Let's see if I can move this. No, I'm not going to touch that. Not going to touch it. The difference between the More, which is a 490-year vision, and the Chazon is a 2,300 evenings and mornings. Watch how this reads. Daniel, the 9th chapter, verses 23 to 27. At the beginning of this supplication, the command was issued, and I, Gabriel, have come to tell you, Daniel, for you are highly esteemed, Daniel. So give heed to the message, Daniel, and gain understanding of the vision. That vision is the More. The More. The More's vision in verse 24 is 70 weeks. Once again, 70 weeks is 1 year, 4 months, and 2 weeks. So the vision of the More is 70 weeks have been decreed. That word decreed now is actually kata, which means cut off. So the vision of the More is 70 weeks, and after the 70 weeks, the Mashiach will be cut off for your people and your holy city to finish the transgression, to make an end of sin, to make atonement for iniquity. Watch this now. To bring in everlasting righteousness, to seal up the vision. Put your mouse on vision and look up the Hebrew word for vision here. The Hebrew word for vision in Daniel 9:23 is vision is More, but the word vision in verse 24 is Chazon. The vision of the More is 490 years. The vision of the Chazon is 2,300 evenings and mornings. Now, I'm gonna speed things up because I'm just going over things over and over again. But Daniel, the 10th chapter, verse 1, watch how this reads. In the 3rd year of Cyrus, king of Persia, a message was revealed to Daniel, whose name was Belshazzar again, and the message was true, okay, by Gabriel, and one of great conflict, but he understood the vision and had an understanding of the vision, which is the More. In those days, watch it, Daniel, the 10th chapter, verses 2 through 4. I think we only have about 2 more slides and we're done. In those days, I, Daniel, had been mourning for 3 entire weeks. I did not eat any tasty food, nor did meat or wine enter my mouth, nor did I use any ointment at all until the 3 weeks were completed. On the 24th day of the 1st month, while I was at the bank of the great river, that is the Tigris, I lifted my eyes and looked, and behold, there was a certain man. When you look at that word certain man in Hebrew, it doesn't say certain man. It says there was one man dressed in linen. Watch how this gets very interesting. This one man was dressed in linen, whose waist was girded with a belt of pure gold of Uphaz. His body was like beryl, his face like the appearance of lightning. His eyes were like flaming torches, his arms and feet like the gleam of polished bronze, and the sound of his words like the sound of a tumult. Watch this now. Now I, Daniel, alone saw the vision. That vision is More, it is not the Chazon. The vision of the More comes first, the Chazon comes last. The Chazon is 2,300 evenings and mornings. The vision of the More now is only beginning with 457 BC, with a Xerxes now ending in 34 AD, because we have to do the 7, the 62, and the last week. That vision is pertaining to the Mashiach. The Mashiach would be cut off. That vision there is more. Now, I, Daniel, alone saw the more, the vision, while the men who were with me did not see the vision. That vision there is more. Nevertheless, a great dread fell on them, and they ran away to hide themselves. Also take notice now is that Paul also saw this same vision on the road to Damascus. Let's read on. So I, Daniel, was left alone and saw this great vision, yet no strength was left in me. My natural color turned into a deathly pallor, and I retained no strength. And this is what happens now, is when you're in the presence of the divine one, which is YAHUSHA HaMashiach, and I'm not taking anything away from the Father, all right? The Father is greater than the Mashiach. Let me just say that. And I retained no strength, but I heard the sound of his words, and as soon as I heard the sound of his words, I fell into a deep sleep on my face, with my face to the ground. Watch this now. Compare Daniel 10:5-9 with Revelation 1:13-18, and then we'll be done. I, Daniel, lifted my eyes and looked, and behold, there was a certain man dressed in linen whose waist, well, actually, we already read that, all right? For time's sake, let's show that what Daniel saw, what Daniel saw, John the Revelator is going to also see the same thing. Verse 13, 1-13. And in the middle of the lampstand, that's also important. And I'll talk about this at a later time. The middle of the lampstand, there are 7 candlesticks on the menorah. I don't know what in the world these Jewish folks are talking about with Hanukkah with 8 or sometimes 9 candlesticks. That is not Torah. Torah only teaches 7 candlesticks on the menorah. Let's read on. No, see, let me back up here a little bit. In the midst of the 7 candlesticks now stands a particular festival, and the middle is Shavuot, the marriage. Meaning now is that there are 3 more stages of the festival to be completed, but that's another lesson. In the middle of the candlestick, I saw one like a son of man clothed in a robe, reaching to his feet. Watch what I have in brown here. And girded across his chest with a golden lash. Go back to Daniel, the 10th chapter, verses 5 and 9. He was girded with a belt of pure gold of Uphaz. His head and his hairs were white like wool, like snow, and his eyes like a flame of fire. Go back to Daniel 10, 5 and 9. His eyes were like flaming torches. Verse 15, his feet were like burnished bronze when it has been made to glow in a furnace. It has here in Daniel the 10th chapter, feet like the gleam of polished bronze. Revelation, it says, his voice was like the sound of many waters. Daniel says that, and the sound of his words like the sound of atonement. Then it says in verse 18, in his right hand he held 7 stars, and out of his mouth came a sharp 2-edged sword, and his. Notice now that we're identifying in Revelation the 13th chapter as this being a person, and we know that this to be the Mashiach, which now goes back to Daniel the 10th chapter, letting us know that Daniel saw an actual man, and that man was a more. Are you putting the pieces of the puzzle together here? Mishpachah, the scriptures talk about the Mashiach. I know that there's a lot of brothers and sisters that are in denial where they're only Torah believers, okay, and they don't believe in the New Testament. But listen, I still have love and patience for my brothers that are non-messianic. But someone's going to have to show me now that what I just brought out in the book of Daniel, the 9th chapter, also in the 8th chapter, also in the 7th chapter that I did weeks ago is pointing to the Mashiach. Now, when I saw him, this him is a person, I fell at his feet like dead. This him is referring to a person. Go to Daniel, the 10th chapter, it says, no strength was left in me, for my natural color turned to a deadly pallor. I fell into a deep sleep on my face with my face to the ground. And that is the same thing that happened to John the Revelator on the island of Patmos. Then in Jeremiah, the 10th chapter, the 29th chapter, verses 10 to 14, and this will be it. But thus saith the sovereign, when 70 years have been completed for Babylon, I will visit you. Who is going to visit Daniel? It's the Mashiach. The Mashiach did visit Daniel, and Jeremiah prophesied about it. The Mashiach visited Daniel at the completion of the 70 years. And here we have it right here in the book of Daniel, the 10th chapter, 5 and 9. This is the visitation that is talked about here in Jeremiah, the 29th chapter, verse 10. And let me see, is there anything else? I said there was one more. That should be the last one. Mishpachar, let me just speed read this, all right? Daniel 10, chapter 10 to 14. After Daniel understands the vision of the Moreh, it then says in 10:14, Gabriel says, now I have come to give you an understanding of what will happen to your people in the latter days. After the death of the Mashiach, after the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 AD, now I, Gabriel, have come to give you an understanding of what will happen to your people, talking about Israel. From Genesis to Revelation now, this is talking about Israel. Now I have come to you now I have come to give you an understanding of what will happen to your people in the latter days. For the vision pertains to days yet in the future. Put your mouse on the word vision and you get the word kazon. 2,300 evenings and mornings. Mishpachar, we are living in the kazon. We are living in the time of the end. Mishpachar, do not take your time lightly. We are at the very end of something major that's about to happen. And Mr. McCall, I want to thank everybody for your time and your patience. All right, I know this was a long presentation, but I do give all honor, respect to the Father, and I give you guys also thanks for your time and your cooperation. So what I'm going to do here, Mishpachar, is I'm going to shut it down. And I'm going to, anybody that has anything they have to say, anything that wasn't clear, raise your hand. And what I would do is ask you to unmute your mic. And I'm now going to do the Q&A. So I'm just watching for the hands. I'm looking for the hands. I'm looking for the hands. If anybody have any questions regarding anything that I have shared with my brothers here tonight. Okay. We have here, okay, we have Brother Brandon. Let's see here. And we have Mikael. Let me see who was first. I think Brandon was first. Let's see. Okay, Brother Brandon, you can unmute and you can go ahead and go. And then after that, we'll have Brother Mikia with this question. Okay, Brother Brandon, are you still there? I just wanted to make sure I didn't overlook your hand. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask Brother Mikia to unmute his mic so he can ask his question. Okay.
Shalom, Elder. That is a great message. I have one statement and I believe 2 questions. The statement was the math of King Cyrus towards the 70 AD. Hold on, I'm trying to ask my question and I got stupid 4-wheelers.
Okay.
Let's see. Those that are trying to say that Flavians just backdated, you know, their conquests from 70 AD to 40 years earlier. That was a nail in the coffin, and that was excellent. And my second question was, so on the 70 AD, was that a year of Jubilee, or was it within their captivity? I know you didn't go over that, but I just had that question. And those are my two questions, and I yield.
Okay, very good question, very good question. Remember with the immersion of the Mashiach, we have an announcement being made, which I found very interesting. Behold, this is my son. Okay, because we see the dove comes down and it overshadows the Mashiach. And then we have something very interesting happening also where, remember when the Mashiach goes to, I believe he went to Nazareth, and he's in one of the synagogues, and he begins to read the book of Isaiah, the 61st chapter. And he said that the Father has anointed me. Let me just read it verbatim. I don't want to mix it. I don't want to mess up anything. The book of Isaiah, the 61st chapter. When the Mashiach came in 27 AD and started his ministry, that word visitation is associated with the word redeem, redemption, Yovel or Yobel, which means that was the time of Israel was supposed to have recognized the Mashiach, and they did not. And being that they did not understand the time of their visitation, lo and behold, I'm going to lay Israel even with the ground. The book of Isaiah, the 61st chapter, let me just pick it up right quick. 61. Here we go. And you can find this also in the book of Luke, the 4th chapter, verse 18. It says, the Ruach of the Spirit of the Sovereign Elohim is upon me, because the Sovereign hath anointed me to preach good tidings or good news unto the meek. He hath sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives, and the opening of the prison to them that are bound, to proclaim the acceptable year of the sovereign. And watch this now, the acceptable year of the sovereign, and proclaiming the acceptable year. We know that this happens now in the 7th month, the 10th day, during the Day of Atonement now, because we have to do 7 times 7, which is 49. We begin to do the counts of the Jubilees. And then the next year now is the Jubilee year. Israel came out of Egypt during the Jubilee. And Israel here, when we go to the book of Luke, the 4th chapter, verse 18, it reads, 4:18, the Mashiach is saying this, the Spirit of the Sovereign is upon me, because he has anointed me to preach the good news to the poor. He has sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to preach deliverance to the captives, and to recovering of the sight of the blind, to set at liberty them that are bruised, to preach the acceptable year of the sovereign. That was the Jubilee year. And being that Israel didn't understand the time of their visitation, when they could have been delivered at that time, being that you didn't recognize the Mashiach, we're talking about the religious leaders here now, I will now lay Jerusalem even with the ground. When you see Jerusalem compassed about with armies, guess what? You better head for the hills, because all hell is about to break loose. I pray that I answered your question. So Mika,
You did, but now that poses another question, and that is,
yes.
Is that a similar to when Israel was in the wilderness and they told them go check out the land and came back with a sour report? And so likewise, they didn't understand the year of the redemption. And so they rejected it. And now we are cursed because of what our forefathers said. You see what I'm asking? The parallels between the two?
It's my understanding that Israel is going into the land during the first year, which would have been, during the spring. But I haven't done the math on whether or not that was a jubilee when they were actually going into the land under Joshua. So what I would have to do is to study that a little bit more in detail. But the only thing that I have is that Israel came out of Egypt during a jubilee year. And we do know that Israel wandered in the wilderness for 40 years. So if they wandered in the wilderness for 40 years, right off the top, I don't see that as being a jubilee, because jubilees are multiples of 7. So you would have to have 7 times 7, which is 49.
Not so much that that's a jubilee, but a typology, or in a sense,
Yes,
the parallel in the typology.
Yes. I would have no issues with that at all.
Okay. All right. I yield.
Okay. Okay, were there any more questions before we close the show for tonight? And once again, I just want to thank everybody for your time and your participation here tonight, especially the great news that Brother Brandon have brought to everybody's attention about the Hebron's men's meeting in August. We also have Morey Yashra'al. He's also on the line. And he actually lives at Salt Community. This is actually his property. I didn't know whether or not he had anything that he wanted to share in regards to the Hebron's men's meeting in August. And if you do, Morey, I'm going to ask you to unmute your mic if there's anything that you want to share before we close the show. Okay, all right. Once again, Mr. McCall, I want to thank everybody for your time and your participation. Let's see here. We have Morey, if you can unmute your mic, the floor is yours.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it wasn't unmuting.
Okay, you're good to go now.
No, I was in a bad area, so I really wasn't able to hear all that Brandon was doing. I did get on during that time, but I was on the way up the mountain, and by the time I got to a place where it was clear, you guys were already you had already started your lesson. Good lesson, by the way, as always. I think you usually try to be pretty thorough. But as far as the men's gathering, it is, I believe, our 4th men's gathering, 3rd or 4th. I'm not sure exactly. Can't. Yeah, it's a 4th. This will be the 4th one, and we're looking to have a good time. I think we're going to try to build on some of the things that we've learned from the previous 3 men's gathering. It looks like it's going to be a great year for to be able to get out and to gather. We got hiking, we got a gun range, we have grills, we got a lot of things that we've learned from the past gatherings. We're going to have some, I think we're going to kind of focus a little bit more on some teaching this year, talking, addressing, men's issues and men's things, some growth areas of growth for young men and older, married men as like. So I think it'll be a good time if we are, getting out, getting to meet some people, getting the fellowship, camping, and getting just kind of building. This is a time in which we have established for healing. So we don't really want to get into a lot of debates. We don't want to get into any debates out here. Don't want it to, we want it to be just Israel. You know, it is said that you cannot heal in the environment in which you which made you sick. So this is an opportunity to kind of get away from the nations and just be amongst the brother, where we can begin to heal, begin to grow in love towards one another, and to just build. And we've had two really, really great gatherings. The first one, the second one, the third one, it was kind of more just fellowship with a handful of brothers that were close, that came up to the mountain. It was a great time, but we're looking to make this fourth one something really special, something really nice. And so I encourage each and every one of you to make some time out to be part of the Hebron's Link Gathering.
Okay, hallelujah. Hallelujah. We're looking forward to it, Moray. Looking forward to it. Okay, we have, let's see. Brother Lemuel, if you can unmute your mic, you have the floor.
Yes, brother, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak something. I must apologize. I got your message, and as usual, I'm running late, and I do realize and understand that we are on a different time frame, and you got to do what you got to do. You got to start your class, and I try to fit in as best as possible. But I did not hear or did not hear the beginning of what the gentleman was saying. I think his name is Brandon Lewis, about something about a gathering or something. So is there any way, or can you call me back later on and give me an explanation about what it is? You know, something about gathering something. I don't know if it's a gathering or a reunion of fellowship down there in Atlanta, Georgia, or in the forest or what. So just basically that was my concern. Thank you.
Okay, no problem at all. Actually, Brother Brandon, yes, he did speak earlier, and Moray Yashra'al, who just got finished speaking, he was sharing some information on the Hebron's gathering. But the information is also on YouTube. So this is recorded on YouTube. You can go back and listen to the information once again. And let's see what we have here. We have, let me see here. Brother Brandon did leave his email address. Let's see something. Hold on quick so I can make sure I get everything correct. I don't know.
Hello?
Brother Brandon, if he wanted to
Yes,
give his
there
email.
is a page here, if I could share and show the brethren this page we have here.
Oh, okay.
Can you guys see the screen?
Yes, I can see it real good.
All right. We have the Hebron Men's page here. Please find it on your on the Facebook, like and follow, and it's pictures and it's videos of all the previous Hebrons here. You can see this on your screen. Scroll down, you know, we got a lot of content. I made it to where we'd have something to go back and see all the previous things here. You know, we got a lot of stuff here. Performances, things of that nature. Yeah, so you just come here and look, should be able to kind of get a feel. Here's the campfire here, which this Hebron gathering around this campfire is going to be mandatory. Sounds kind of rough to say, but this environment here is going to be a key part in the healing and in us being able to bond and come together and to share our stories. Sitting around a fire at night under the stars, you know, barbecuing, having drinks, you know, just really enjoying our time and enjoying Yah. That's what it's all about. So it is not in Georgia. It's in Altamont, Tennessee, at the Salt community. Yeah. So yeah, like I said, you know, we got plenty of content from all the previous ones and everything. You know, videos and things, pictures. So yeah, that's all I got, brother.
Okay, hallelujah. So my brother Lemuel, there's plenty of information on Facebook, and we can actually talk a little bit more later offline. Whenever, you know, if you need more information, I'll definitely share it with you. It is going to be done in August, and if you can make it out, because you're in Chicago, right? Yeah, brother Lemuel, he's in Chicago, so it would be good if he would be able to make it through. So, Mr. McCall, are there any more questions? If not, I'm gonna go ahead and shut it down. And once again, I just want to thank everybody for your time and your participation here tonight. As always, may the Father continue to bless each and every one of your households, keep you safe and sound, and remember, these commandments are important. And until the next time we meet, Mr. McCall, I'm going to say, La Yatov and Shalom, Shalom, Shalom.